Silas Marner, The Weaver of Raveloe is the third novel by George Eliot. It was published in 1861. An outwardly simple tale of a linen weaver, the novel is notable for its strong realism and its sophisticated treatment of a variety of issues ranging from religion to industrialization to community. Mary Ann Evans, 22 November 1819 to the 22nd of December 1880, alternatively Mary Ann or Marian, known by her pen name George Eliot, was an English novelist, poet, journalist, translator, and one of the leading writers of the Victorian era. She wrote 7 novels. Adam Bede 1859, The Mill on the Floss 1860, Silas Marner 1861, Romola 1862-63, Felix Holt, The Radical 1866, Middlemarch 1871-72, and Daniel Deronda 1876. Like Charles Dickens and Thomas Hardy, she emerged from provincial England. Most of her works are set there. Her works are known for their realism, psychological insight, sense of place and detailed depiction of the countryside. Summary. The novel is set in the early years of the 19th century. Silas Marner, a weaver, is a member of a small Calvinist congregation in Lantern Yard, a slum street in northern England. He is falsely accused of stealing the congregation's funds while watching over the very ill deacon. 2 pieces of evidence implicate Silas: a pocket knife, and the discovery in his own house of the bag formerly containing the money. There is the strong suggestion that Silas's best friend, William Dane, has framed him, since Silas had lent his pocket knife to William shortly before the crime was committed. Lots are drawn in the belief also shared by Silas that God will direct the process and establish the truth, but they indicate that Silas is guilty. The woman Silas was to marry breaks their engagement and marries William instead. With his life shattered, his trust in God lost, and his heart broken, Silas leaves Lantern Yard and the city for a rural area where he is unknown. Silas travels south to the Midlands and settles near the rural village of Raveloe in Warwickshire, where he lives isolated and alone, choosing to have only minimal contact with the residents beyond his work as a linen weaver. He devotes himself wholeheartedly to his craft and comes to adore the gold coins he earns and hoards from his weaving. One foggy night, Silas's 2 bags of gold are stolen by Dunsey, Cass, a dissolute younger son of Squire Cass, the town's leading landowner. On discovering the theft, Silas sinks into a deep depression despite the villagers' attempts to aid him. Dunsey immediately disappears, but the community makes little of this disappearance since he has vanished several times before. Godfrey Cass, Dunsey's elder brother, also harbors a secret past. He is married to, but estranged from, Molly Farron, an opium-addicted working-class woman living in another town. This secret prevents Godfrey from marrying Nancy Lammeter, a young middle-class woman. On a winter's night, Molly tries to make her way to Squire Cass's New Year's Eve party with her 2-year-old girl to announce that she is Godfrey's wife. On the way, she collapses in the snow and loses consciousness. The child wanders into Silas's house. Silas follows the child's tracks in the snow and discovers the woman dead. When he goes to the party for help, Godfrey heads outdoors to the scene of the accident, but resolves to tell no one that Molly was his wife. Molly's death, conveniently for Godfrey and Nancy, puts an end to the marriage. Silas keeps the child and names her Eppie, after his deceased mother and sister, both named Hephzibah. Eppie changes Silas's life completely. Silas has been robbed of his material gold, but thinks that he has it returned to him symbolically in the form of the golden-haired child. Godfrey Cass is now free to marry Nancy, but continues to conceal the fact of his previous marriage, and child, from her. However, he aids Marner in caring for Eppie with occasional financial gifts. More practical help and support in bringing up the child is provided by Dolly Winthrop, Marner's kindly neighbor. Dolly's help and advice assist Marner not only in bringing up Eppie, but also in integrating them into village society. 16 years pass, and Eppie grows up to be the pride of the village. She has a strong bond with Silas, who through her has found a place in the rural society and a purpose in life. Meanwhile, Godfrey and Nancy mourn their own childless state, after the death of their baby. Eventually, the skeleton of Dunstan Cass, still clutching Silas's gold, is found at the bottom of the stone quarry near Silas's home, and the money is duly returned to Silas. Shocked by this revelation, and coming to the realization of his own conscience, Godfrey confesses to Nancy that Molly was his first wife and that Eppie is his child. They offer to raise her as a gentleman's daughter, but this would mean Eppie would have to forsake living with Silas. Eppie politely but firmly refuses, saying, "I can't think o' no happiness without him." Silas revisits Lantern Yard, but his old neighborhood has been swept away in the intervening years. The place is now replaced by a large factory. No one seems to know what happened to Lantern Yard's inhabitants. However, Silas contentedly resigns himself to the fact that he will never know and now leads a happy existence among his self-made family and friends. In the end, Eppie marries a local boy she has grown up with, Dolly's son Aaron, and they move into Silas's house, which has been newly improved courtesy of Godfrey. Silas's actions through the years in caring for Eppie have apparently provided joy for everyone, and the extended family celebrates its happiness. Silas Marner. Lower class by birth, a weaver who is betrayed at Lantern Yard, site of a dissenting sect by his treacherous friend William Dane, moves away to Raveloe where the community as Church of England becomes taken for a miser, as he accumulates a small fortune, only to have it stolen by Dunstan Cass. After these misfortunes, he gradually finds his happiness and virtue by the arrival of young Eppie, biological daughter of Godfrey Cass, whom he raises as his adopted child. Eppie turns out to be a beautiful girl, and it is decided later that she will marry Aaron Winthrop. Squire Cass, lord of the manor of Raveloe and host of the party on the night when Eppie comes into Silas's life so unexpectedly. Godfrey Cass, upper class by birth but troubled by money, eldest son of the local squire, who is blackmailed by his dissolute brother Dunstan over his secret first marriage to Molly. When Molly dies, he feels relief, and escapes punishment for his betrayal and deceit, instead marrying Nancy. Dunstan Cass, second son of the local squire. He blackmails his older brother, until he disappears. He steals Silas's gold after accidentally killing his older brother's horse Wildfire. Many years pass before his corpse is found in a newly drained pit. Molly Farron, Godfrey's first and secret wife, who has a child by him, an opium addict, lower class, impoverished. She dies in the attempt to reveal to the community her relationship with Godfrey, leaving the child, Eppie, to wander into Silas's life. Eppie Hephzibah, daughter of Molly and Godfrey, who is named by and cared for by Silas after the death of her mother. Mischievous in her early years, she grows into a radiant and beautiful young girl, devoted to her adoptive father. Nancy Cass née Lamiter, Godfrey Cass' second wife, a morally and socially respectable young woman, admired by her husband but deceived by him as regards his past. Priscilla Lamiter, Nancy's plain, unmarried older sister, who supports Nancy and their father. Aaron Winthrop, son of Dolly, who marries Eppie at the end of the novel and is considered a happy match for her. Dolly Winthrop, mother to Aaron, wife of Ben, godmother to Eppie. Sympathetic to Silas and offers him practical support in raising the child. Ben Winthrop, wheelwright, largely invisible in the novel. Mr. Snell, landlord of the Rainbow Inn, Raveloe. William Dane. William Dane is Silas's former best friend at Lantern Yard. At the start of the novel, William betrays Silas by framing him for theft and marrying Silas's fiancée Sarah. Sarah, Silas's fiancée in Lantern Yard, who subsequently marries his treacherous friend William Dane. Mr. Macy, the clerk at the local church, a tailor, very elderly by the end of the novel. Solomon Macy, Mr. Macy's brother, a talented violinist. Mr. Krakenthorpe, rector of Raveloe and a justice of the peace. Bob Lundy, the butcher of Raveloe. John Dowlas, the farrier of Raveloe. Jem Rodney, a local poacher, initially suspected by Silas of stealing his money. Mrs. Kimball, the sister of Squire Cass, and the doctor's wife, thus considered a double dignitary. Dr. Kimball, the doctor of Raveloe, who attends when Molly is found dead. Bob Cass, the squire's youngest son. Lawrence J. Dessner has drawn connections between the biographical circumstances of Eliot's life in relation to events in the novel. Bruce K. Martin has discussed Eliot's use of Godfrey Cass as, both parallel and foil, to Silas Marner in the structure of the novel. Fred C. Thompson has examined the multiple levels of the idea of alienation in the novel. Joseph Wiesenfarth has noted undercurrents of myth and legend, incorporated into a realistic context, along with contrasts of responsible and irresponsible behavior in the contrasting fates of Silas Marner and the Cass brothers. David Sandstrom has studied ideas of chance and Darwinian thinking in the context of the plot and character fates in the novel. Susan Stewart has looked at the influence of folktales and ideology related to work versus labor in the novel. Ian Milner has examined two overarching themes of Silas Marner's loss and recovery of his humanity, and of a conflict between stated moral values and the social realities juxtaposed with them. Robert H. Dunham has analyzed the influence of the ideas and philosophy of William Wordsworth on the novel. Brian Swan has examined mythic and religious undertones in the novel. Jeff Nunakawa analyzes ideas about physical touch, with respect to Silas Marner's handling of his gold compared to his raising of Eppie, and connects them to sexual and sensual themes. Katie Brown has discussed overarching themes of time and temporality, with respect to the interlocked stories of Godfrey Cass and Silas Marner.